James! James, what day is it?
It's Wednesday, Walt, and it was Wednesday 5 minutes ago when you last asked me. Are you alright?
Yeah, fine. Fine.
You sure? I haven't seen you this tightly wound since you fell off the bus, Martin.
I'm expecting something to arrive, and I'm a bit stressed about it, okay?
Alright, what's going to arrive?
The future.
And that stresses you out, does it?
It doesn't stress you out?
Well, not particularly. Oh, actually, Walt, it's just ticked over to midnight, so it is technically...
Thursday! It's that time of the week, 4th day on the morning of the 5th day. Look to the east. But it's not quite there. Nothing but maggoty bread for 3 stinking days. It's longer than that. It's 4 day, Thor day. Did you know that Thursday is actually Thor's day, James? That's where the name comes from. It's the 4th day of the week, 4th day. Maybe they should call it 4th day.
Walt, you're freaking me out. You sound a little bit like you
Ever wanted to disguise yourself as a Christmas ham? Wish that your relatives would feast on your flesh?
I have, actually. No, wait, Walt, this is not you.
Oh yeah? What makes you so sure?
You're not the cowed merchant, Walt. You are much weirder. In fairness, like, he couldn't exist without you, so you're like the base ingredient for all of your wacky characters, including the cowed merchant.
It's true. The cumulative effect of all the strange personas that I wear is me.
I do like how you went into Lord of the Rings for a hot second there as well.
It felt appropriate after the
sense.
recent set. Welcome to the Get Commanded podcast. It's the GCP brought to you by POG, Palms Off Gaming, sponsor of this podcast. We're all uniting forces to help you to have better games of Commander. I'm your host, Walt.
And hello, Commander players. I'm your other host, James. Now, before we get to, I'm assuming, a transmission, there isn't actually a blinking light, but we'll look in the inbox.
We'll find it later,
I'm not sure if you've read it or just opened it already, but...
I think it's on the way, yeah.
Fair enough. Well, before we look in our inbox and find out what's going on, I do want to remind all of you lovely listeners out there, if you want to support the incredible content that Walt and I are doing, there is no better way to do it than on our Patreon. It's the best way to support the work that we do. And there's awesome benefits on there, like playing with Walt and I. We can review your decks. We can, like, give you access to certain things and stuff on our Discord. It's really, really cool. You should check out it all on patreon.com/getcommandedpodcast. So, do you know why the green light's not blinking? Or
I've got a little bit of a feeling about it. I have a funny feeling we should start this episode with a thrifty interlude.
I have to admit, we have been talking for a very long time. I'm keen for a break.
So we're going to begin this week with a thrifty interlude. Not much of an interlude, I suppose, because not much has happened so far, but we're going to hear a little something about a thrifty card. And as is tradition, I will be performing a monologue. And this week, it's the Cowed Merchant with some more new wares. Would you like to read the card we're featuring this week, James?
I sure would. All right, well, the card for this week's thrifty interlude at, 4 minutes into the podcast is Endray's Forerunners, the big pig. It's 5 green, green, green for a creature boar that's a 7/7 with vigilance, trample, and haste. And whenever it enters the battlefield, other creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain vigilance and trample until end of turn.
Ever wondered what it might be like to glimpse the soul of your creator? For the clouds to part for just a single moment? For all the things you've been and done to mean something? Or perhaps the clouds were always part of it, and the wind, and the trees, and so it comes to this. I've told you so many stories. But this will not be the end. From the ashes of our past, a new dawn will rise. A pure dawn of endless possibility. A fire in your ribcage. A light to guide our way. And from that day, another will spring. And another. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Get budgeted. Forever.
Walt.
Huh? What are you doing here? This is my private, solitary, imaginary, weird space. Walt only, okay? I mean, I'm not Walt. I'm the cowled merchant.
For 100 weeks, you have been breathing life into cheap Magic the Gathering cards. This has had a significant effect on our cohort, and we now require an offering from you.
What kind of offering?
100 weeks. 100 cards.
Yeah, I got that. What am I offering you with that?
Remember who you are.
You can't Lion King me, that's not fair! I'm the one who gets to quote stuff! Man, 100 cards, what's that about? Oh! A commander deck? You want me to build a commander deck? But all of the Thrifty Thursdays cards do different things! How's that ever gonna work?
You will find the way.
Alright, well, I guess it's
Time to get commanded!
Bloody hell, James, how did you get in here?
You know, like wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, doorway into your head, all that kind of stuff. Wow, everything around here looks just really cheap.
Yeah, that's the idea. It's all much more valuable than it looks, though. Like, over there...
Hey, is that little guy from Sprout Swarm? Hey, little guy! Look how cute he is, Walt!
James, do you remember what Sprout Swarm does?
Yeah, it makes one sapling and has buyback. Should we run?
Yeah, let's run.
Okay.
Right now.
Let's
yeah.
run! Ah! That was incredibly meta and weird. So we're doing an Archetypes episode because the Space Commanders have kind of abducted us into the world of Thrifty Thursdays, and we're now in that.
Out again.
We ran away from a swarm of Sprout Swarms. I'm assuming been buffed by Enray's Forerunners, which is a great Thrifty Thursdays 100.
A lot has happened.
Yeah.
What I've landed at is we're building a commander deck that uses the cards from Thrifty Thursdays. Because there are 100 now. That was the card that I've just featured literally yesterday as of the time this episode comes out.
Yep.
As of yesterday, Thrifty Thursdays 100 has come out. So for 100 weeks, every Thursday, I've written a Thrifty Thursdays card. Every single one has been different. They've all been about, $2 or less or whatever.
Yeah.
So we have 100. Yeah, we can build a commander deck.
Well, can I firstly say, congrats on Thrifty 100.
Thank you.
This is a lot of writing, and you can go into our Discord and go back through the logs and see all the different Thrifty Thursdays. Yep. Not all of them are on Discord. Some of them are exclusively in our private Facebook group from our community. But you've been doing this for a long time. These are beloved. So I think everyone has been waiting for the culmination of 100 cards coming together into a commander deck. It's exciting.
I think it's really exciting. I would like to start in a kind of weird spot when it comes to building this deck.
Sorry, we've not started in a weird spot already with this episode.
Okay, maybe a little less weird than what's just happened, but still a bit weird.
Sure.
It will feel out of place. I want to talk about how I choose cards to feature on Thrifty Thursdays.
Yeah, I've actually talked to you about this because we've been in store and like game stores across Melbourne, and people have been like, this would be a great Thrifty Thursdays card. And you're like, it doesn't fit my imaginary criteria that I have in my brain.
Well, they were imaginary criteria.
Until now.
I've decided to put them down in writing because I felt like I had them in my head. And so I knew when someone told me about a card that it wasn't a Thrifty Thursdays card. I didn't know why. I've articulated the 4 Ps of choosing a good Thrifty Thursdays card.
God, we love alliteration, don't we?
We do. It's true.
Of Thrifty Thursdays.
Yes, exactly right. So the first one's pretty obvious. The first P is price. So
can't be a Thrifty Thursdays card if it's not thrifty.
No, exactly right. So it has to be cheap. Usually my absolute maximum is $2, and that's like on Card Kingdom or something like that. But in general, I actually aim for cards to be $1 or less. I want cards that really don't stretch the bank at all. Anyone can pick one up kind of thing.
Nice. I like it. I have seen a couple of Thrifty Thursdays cards climb in price since their feature.
Exactly right. So obviously I'm not speculating with price. It's the time that when I write about the card, that's when I'm talking about it. You know what I mean?
Realistically, if you feature it on Thrifty Thursdays and the price starts to climb, it's because you made it expensive.
There's actually been a few times. I haven't featured that many cards that have climbed up a lot. There's been a few cards I've set aside as future Thrifty Thursdays cards that have then gotten extremely popular. Like D-Car was one that I had.
Oh, the Fractal Theorist?
it makes fractals whenever you cast instant sorceries. It's a really strong card.
It's like $5 now, right?
It's like $10, I believe.
Oh, damn it. I need to buy one of those for a new deck.
It's so good. I think it was like $1 at the time I was looking at it. I was like, everyone's sleeping on this card. And then I was like, oh, no one's sleeping on it anymore.
Well, it's because it's like, as a mono... Oh, no, it's a Simic. No.
Blue. It makes blue-green tokens, but it is a blue color identity
so,
card.
like, if you had a Talrand deck, you could replace it with Dika and be creating more than just 2/2s. You could be creating a 5/5, a 3/3, a 6/6.
100%.
Yeah, that's sick.
Yeah, it's super good. The other one, the next P, is popularity. So I don't like to feature cards that are extremely well known already, even if they're cheap. So as much as I love it and I do play it and I rate it super highly, Rampant Growth will probably never get a Thrifty Thursdays because everyone is, 80% of people, 90% of people probably are aware of Rampant Growth.
Well, I feel like everyone's aware of Rampant Growth because it's the card that defined ramp.
Yeah. It's the basis of that whole umbrella term. Yeah. So those two are reasonably, sort of obvious. The next one is playability. And when I say that, I'm not saying it has to be a card that is worth putting in a commander deck.
Yeah.
I'm saying it has to be playable in more than one sort of deck.
So it can't be just that one weird card that sees 100% of play on one commander's EDH rec page.
100%.
I get you.
I love cards like that. I love, in my Arami deck, I love Teferi's Veil, the 2-mana enchantment that says whenever a creature you control attacks, it phases out at end of combat. In Arami, it lets you keep the things you encore forever because the end of turn effect resolves, but they're not on the battlefield, so they can't be sacrificed. So you keep them all from forever. I think it's a really cool card. I don't think Teferi's Veil is seeing play in any other decks. You know what I mean?
I'm trying to think if there's a deck that fits in, but it's really weird.
It would
so probably
also
not.
be really narrow. You know what I mean? It has to be playable in sort of maybe 2 or 3 different sorts of decks.
I genuinely can't even think of another deck Teferi's Veil goes in.
Yeah.
It's a weird card.
Or in my Arami deck, I play Cemetery Tampering. Is a great mill card. This is the mill card that has Hideaway. It's really, really good if you're in a mill deck, if you're in a Reanimator deck. But outside of mill and Reanimator, you're not going to play it. I wouldn't put that in my, I don't know, Aristocrats deck. I don't think it would be doing enough in that deck.
No, I get what you're saying. So it has to be slottable in any kind of commander deck within a certain range. If it's in an archetype and pushes for example, there's Greg the Useless Sculptor, he makes tokens. That's kind of good it's better in a tokens list, but it can go in any white creature-based strategy.
Yeah. And look, I will say I'm flexible on this. So I featured cards that have Storm, for instance, where mostly you're going to be playing that in the Spellslinger deck. But it's iffy here. It's not as crucial, but in general, I try to feature cards that are, playable in a few different places.
I feel like the real box to tick is whether or not it just gets the thumbs up from you.
I mean, the 4th P is pleasing.
Oh, really? So that's genuinely down to you whether you just like the card or not.
I mean, I think, it has to be interesting to me, I guess, is what I'm saying. And look, the 3 other categories will help with this already. But there are times where someone shows me a card and it's cheap, it fits the price one. It's not popular, so it fits that category. It's playable in a few sorts of decks, but I just don't think it's very interesting. And it won't really get a Thrifty Thursdays for that reason. I want people to look at Thrifty Thursdays, basically. All these categories are so that someone can see a card that is cheap and go wow.
That's kind of nuts.
That's kind of nuts in maybe this deck or maybe this other deck.
Well, one of the cards that I thought that I looked at a Thrifty Thursdays blog post and went, oh my god, I'm sleeping on this card, was Port of Carfell. It was one of the Thrifty Thursdays cards where I was hang on, this is just to reanimate anything in your graveyard
and
on
mill
a
you.
land, and it mills you a bit. What?
Yeah.
That's just another effect of a reanimate spell?
Yeah.
It's so good. I feel like if you're in a reanimator strategy that's in blue-black, you kind of have to run it.
Yeah.
And also just if you're in blue-black and have good big bomb creatures that you want to keep on the battlefield, if someone removes it, having a Port of Carfell there just in case someone removes your, I don't know, Sphinx of the Second Sun or your something else, just getting it back feels incredible. I feel like that was one of the cards that hit me and went, oh my god, Thrifty Thursdays is affecting my deck building.
And it's a land on the front.
On the front! This one's a land on the... It's actually a Magic the Gathering deck master thing on the back. It's a real Magic card.
Which is good that it is that. Anyway, sorry. So I realize that's a bit of a weird thing to start with, but this all feeds into the fact that I cheated with this deck.
Walt, how dare you?
So we've talked before about how we read the commands in advance.
Yeah.
I read this command 28 weeks ago.
I actually remember you kind of owning up to this about 28 weeks ago.
So I knew it was coming, and basically I was like, I want the deck that I build at the end of this to be playable. And the main thing that I realized is because of those 4 criteria I just outlined, and particularly those last 2, being playable in a few different decks and being pleasing, means that there are particular types of cards that I'm very inclined to feature, like protection spells and removal and graveyard recursion. And there are other types of spells that are extremely important to deck building, and we've talked about a lot, that I'm very not inclined to include, like card draw and ramp.
Yeah, I remember you like kind of coming to me with this pie in the sky idea with the Space Commanders, and I was like, I don't know if this can happen, man. Like it's you're gonna need to like cheat a bit, and like you were like, yeah, no, I know, I don't have any of this, because like at that time you would have kind of already got a list of the cards ready, and you could see what categories they fixed, and even what tags on Moxfield they were kicking.
Yes,
you see the list on Moxfield.
Yeah, exactly right. And I knew that this was lacking. So if you look at all of the Thrifty Thursdays since week 72, you can probably spot a bit of a pattern. There's a lot of ramp in there, a lot of card draw in there, because I wanted this deck to be playable. So yes, that is one thing that works in its favor. The other thing it was lacking was win cons. So that was another thing I focused. Hence Endray's Forerunners being our 100th card there. That is a card that can just win the game.
Absolutely shocking that one of the win cons in this deck is having a bunch of tokens and casting an Endray's Forerunners, which is something Walt's been doing since he started playing Commander.
It's true. I reckon in probably the first singles order I placed, it was
like
probably
3
Endray's Forerunners in there.
Probably multiple. I
wouldn't be shocked.
I remember having an Endray's Forerunners and you kind of being obsessed with the card, just being like, it's like a big overrun effect, but on a creature, and it's a big pig, and I was like, all right, this is Walt's card from now on.
I wasn't aware that Crater Hoof Behemoth existed yet, and if I'd seen the price, maybe I wouldn't have been playing Commander in the first place.
And now there's a white Crater Hoof Behemoth. We've got enough overrun effects, people. It's fine.
We've got more than enough. It's true. Look, my hope is that not only did I fix the deck, but that hopefully it's just improved the overall variation in the cards that I featured in Thrifty Thursday. So I hope Space Commanders understand that that's why I've been doing that. And I've still been choosing the cards that fit the 4 Ps wherever possible. So like my ramp pieces, I didn't feature Rampant Growth. Like I've said, it's not really a card I want to feature.
It's very rare because you always have a white-bordered Rampant Growth in any deck that has green.
It's true. I really like the card, but I ended up, featuring on Thrifty Thursdays instead cards that I feel people were sleeping on more, like Diligent Farmhand and Leafkin Druid.
The Leafkin Druid's the one that taps for 2 green.
If you have 4 or more creatures,
Was it power or 4 or more creatures?
4 or more creatures. There's another one you're thinking of, I forget what it's called, that is like a tree folk, that if you have 4
Elysian
or more power.
Carroted,
which taps for a mana of any colour as well, or 2 mana,
it's
which
actually
is
pretty gas.
It's pretty cool in that way. So the other way that I cheated, aside from choosing cards that were card draw and ramp and that kind of thing, lands.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm assuming basics don't count, right?
Surely basics don't count. I've extended that not counting to lands that just are good, cheap. So I kept them cheap, but multicolour lands. It has to be a 5-colour deck to feature all the cards that I need to have in it, right? Like if I had a 3-colour deck, so many of my cards are not playable straight up, right? So it has to be 5 colour. So I just included a bunch of the typical cheap, very good multicolored lands in our format, like Evolving Wilds, Path of Ancestry, and Command Tower. And then the rest of the sort of like fixing package is just tapped dual lands from Dominaria United that have like types, the ones just enter tapped and have 2 types on them.
Seeing a lot of Pauper play at the moment.
Yep, like Wooded Ridgeline is the red-green one, that kind of thing. And then tapped tri-lands, but not the cycling ones from Ikoria and stuff.
Oh, these are the untyped ones that just come in tapped and tap for a mana of 1 of 3 colours.
Yeah, so Jungle Shrine, for instance, is the Naya one, right? Just enters tapped, taps for red, green, or white.
Look, I'm okay with you doing that. And look, in the future, maybe you do like a one-off Thrifty Thursdays about this cycle of kind of crap lands that are totally fine to play in a 5-colour mana base.
And help me fix the deck. Yes, it's true. I might do that. And look, I will say most of the lands that I have featured on Thrifty Thursdays are also in there. So Port of Carfell, for instance, in the deck. So that's also something to look forward to. Now, the other very significant thing that I've done here, and I did because I had so many weeks to prepare, the commander of this Thrifty Thursdays deck. You're smiling because you already know about it.
I think it's so cool. I think it's awesome.
So basically, like, my concern with the deck is there are many different sorts of cards I feature on Thrifty Thursdays that are trying to do very different things.
Well, we've already spoken about it. Like, you got Graveyard Reanimator stuff, Token Overrun stuff,
there's
even
Spellslinger
stuff. Yeah.
So in order to make sure that the deck, like, actually kind of, like, got towards where it wanted to go, I needed there to be a really strong effect in the command zone to support the various sub-strategies and basically, spoiling a little bit, but have the ability to find the cards you need to choose a line and then kind of just like commit to it and go down that specific line, whether it be Spellslinger, Graveyard, whatever you decide to do. So I designed this card that is the custom commander of this deck.
I'm actually holding it right now. It's a real printed card.
It's true. We have physical copies of it. So I designed this in consultation with James. James helped me. Another friend of ours helped me in a group chat that we had. And our amazing judge, Ellie, that you'll have heard of already in this episode, has confirmed that the rules work for me. So thank you, Ellie, for doing that.
Well templated. Bravo.
Thank you. I actually wrote it all out and then was like to Ellie, does this work on a Magic card? And she was like, yep, no notes.
Nice. Nailed it, bro.
I understand rules.
Custom cards are always something that judges are like, I hate reviewing custom cards because you have to think about how can you break it?
Yeah.
How can you really break it? And for a judge to come back and be like, nah, good job.
Yep.
It's like, well done, man.
Thank you. I was very proud of myself, not gonna lie. So basically, I have paper versions of these cards. I'll tell you a bit later how you can pick up a copy of this yourself if you would like to. But basically, I commissioned my partner, Electra Thea. Her Instagram is linked in the show notes. She's an amazing visual artist and writer. I commissioned her to design a art for me. It is me, basically.
It's a beautiful you as well. You are rippling abs, huge biceps, as per usual, I might add. But there are so many like little Easter eggs in this art.
So there is a little guy from Sprout Swarm in the art.
There's also the Dawn Charm.
I'm
necklace.
wearing the Dawn Charm. I've got these big like orange angelic wings. There's this beautiful purple and pink
hue
sort
of a background
sunset behind me that my partner designed. That was all her. She's fantastic like that.
And of course the Greek pillars.
Yes.
That's also Electra.
Yeah.
That's nothing to do with Thrifty Thursdays. That's I know the artist.
Yes.
And she would have loved to get that in.
It fits great. So
it does look incredible.
I'm so happy to have it. But James, would you like to read the card that is the commander of the Thrifty Thursdays deck? You do.
I would love to. Okay, well, the card's name. Oh, it's exciting. I get to announce it. It is Thursday Incarnate. For 1 white, 1 blue, a black, a green, and a red. So Wooburg mana cost, you will get a legendary creature, Human Avatar. Power toughness 4/7. Whenever you cast a spell, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal a card with lesser mana value than that spell and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. And then this is just a beautiful line of text here. You lose the game if you cast a spell that has not been featured on Thrifty Thursdays. And can I read the flavor text?
Go for it.
The flavor text is get budgeted, the Cowled Merchant. I've been wanting to do that for weeks.
Have you? Finally got your fix.
Finally did it.
So yeah, this is the commander of the Thrifty Thursdays deck. I'd like to take a moment.
It's pretty strong. It's pretty good.
It works with the deck. And look, this is what I was talking about, is I wanted there to be an ability to find the cards that you need to pick your line. So yeah, whenever you cast a spell, look at the top 7 cards of your library, reveal a card with lesser mana value than that spell.
Everything basically cantrips at this point.
Yeah, it's designed in such a way that it's not like just tutoring, because it has to be lesser mana value, so it means that like Endrose Forerunners, for instance, is in the deck.
It's probably like the top of the curve as well.
It's the top of the curve. It's an 8 mana creature, right? I don't think there's any 9-drops in the deck. So the only way you can find Endrose Forerunners is by drawing it or by casting an X spell, of which there is one.
That's clever.
There's also one tutor in the deck, which I'll talk about later probably. But yeah, basically the really, really high impact spells are very hard to find because they're very high mana value.
Yep.
But you can find a lot of your synergy pieces by casting small spells.
You never whiff either because you can always get a land because it says put that card into your hand. It's reveal a card. So you can get a land. If you cast a 1-drop, you can reveal the top 7.
Yep.
You can see that Enray's Forerunners revealed and you're like, crap, I'll get this land.
Yeah, it works really well. You hit your land drops really consistently with this deck. We'll talk a bit about how it plays. But I wanted to quickly shout out some of the flavor of this card in case you missed it.
It's pretty on the nose if you didn't. If you did miss it, I'm impressed.
Sure. So, obviously, we're talking about Thrifty Thursdays. We're talking about 7 days of the week. It
Yep.
looks at 7 cards and picks one, i.e. it looks at 7 days and picks Thursday.
Correct.
Fun. It's a 4-7 because the 4th day of the 7-day week is Thursday.
Did you know it's also Thor Day? That's where it came from.
Thanks, James. I have heard that before.
I got
from
told
myself. Yes.
recently.
So eventually, if you cast enough spells, the year resets and you begin to predict the future.
Is this because you put them to the bottom in any order?
In any order. So eventually you start to control your fate. I have had this happen once in a game before.
I've seen it. It was actually kind of like, how many times have you done it? And then I saw you go, if I just cast like 3 more 1-drops, I might be able to find this card that I put to the bottom 4 turns ago.
It's a really fun mechanic, I'm not going to lie. It takes long enough that you have to earn it, but it's not unfeasible to get there. So we talked about the features, some of my favourite Thrifty Thursdays cards on there. Sprout Swarm, Dawn Charm, that sort of kind of thing.
We will put up an image of the card in our Discord
will.
you can actually have a look at it, because obviously there's plenty of ways to get in touch with us, but we'll talk about that later. But like Discord and Twitter, or X, and Instagram now, which we'll talk about later, you can go and get images of this card and have a look at the amazing art by Electro.
Definitely can. I also want to note that, this gets around the issue of me cheating with lands earlier, because it says you lose the game if you cast a spell that has not been featured on Thrifty Thursdays.
It says cast a spell.
Yes.
Lands are not spells. Nice.
Yep.
However, it was pointed out in a recent game, if you can force Walt to cast a card, Walt loses the game.
Yep. It's so, honestly, it's narrow enough. I was sitting in a pod, because we've done some playtesting, which we'll go into in a sec.
There was some secret behind closed doors playtesting that had to happen.
It's true, but we were talking about, how possible is it to make me lose? And people were kind of it's so hard.
There's some, real, you could use effects where, whenever you cast a spell, each opponent copies the spell, may cast the copy. But that is so narrow and sees barely any play.
And even that one says may cast the spell.
Oh, so you
right?
can choose.
I
that's
can just
so
choose
true.
not to. So it has to be you have to force me to cast a spell. And that's a really important one. It doesn't say control a permanent or anything like that. So if someone gives me a permanent or makes me reveal to get a permanent from my library or get a permanent from their library, that would be fine as long as I'm not casting it, which is really interesting.
I feel, it's the only way I can feasibly think about it is if I mind slaver you, somehow get an Atali on your field, swing with Atali, and then trigger it.
That's an interesting one.
There's so many loopholes that I have to jump through.
Honestly, it's narrow enough that if you manage to do this against me, because I'm going to be playing this deck, you deserve the win. Mad props to you.
Oh my god, people are going to metagame the crap out of this now, aren't they?
Sideboarding in, I'm playing against Walt, put in Atali.
Yeah.
Whatever they're going to
put in Atali and Harmless Offering.
So I'd like to talk a bit about, because I have built this deck, basically.
It's a real deck. I've seen it.
It exists in paper.
It actually exists in a Palms Off Gaming deck box as well.
It's true. Very generously given by Palms Off Gaming, so thanks for that, Palms Off. But, I've played about 5 games with the deck and tweaked it just very, very slightly. I did a lot of gold fishing before then, so I was pretty confident in it, but I did about 5 games. James has been in all of these games, by the way. Honestly, I thought it played, pretty well. Surprisingly well.
It was good, actually. I'd argue that it's good.
So once the commander's on the battlefield, you have all your spells basically cantrip. You have so much control over your destiny because you can sequence your plays in the hope that you find certain spells. It's fairly easy to find the right cards for each moment, find the removal spell you need, or...
7 cards deep is very deep in your library.
It's pretty substantial. It's you hit so much more often than you miss, for sure. And there are 3 sort of main sub-strategies we talked about in the deck already, and they kind of support each other reasonably well, which is the going wide with cards like Sprout Swarm, Captain of the Watch, that kind of thing.
Deploy to the front.
Yeah, Deploy to the front's a good one. Graveyard Recursion with cards like Infernal Offering, Backdraft Hellkite, and then...
Port of Carfel.
Oh, that's true.
That's
true.
a land that was featured.
It was so hard to cast in a 5-color deck to play, because it's
Because it's
blue,
blue, and a black.
or something.
It's ridiculously pipped.
Then there's a spell slinging strategy with cards like Volcanic Torrent and Double Vision. But there's a lot of overlap here. So Sprout Swarm, for instance, works great because it has buyback and convoke. Works great with cards like Empty the Warrens that have Storm, or cards like Goblin Slide. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell,
just pay 1, make a
goblin.
That's nice.
Casting Sprout Swarm for free, pay 1, make a goblin is basically pay 1 mana, make 2 creatures.
Pretty good.
It's great.
I also like the the one-off big combos that you could potentially hit in this deck, like casting Deploy to the front while there's a double vision on board is insanity.
Yeah. So there's this is the kind of thing I realized is I sort of thought all these things existed completely separate, but if there's a Venn diagram of these three strategies, there is a bit of overlap.
There are cards that see play in all of those strategies. Like I'm playing a Spellslinger. I'm building a Jeskai Spellslinger deck at the moment. I've actually finished it. I just need to press order on the cards. And I am running Double Vision, Volcanic Turret, and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. But I'm also running Increasing Devotion, which is very similar to Deploy to the Front.
Yeah.
But it's a Spellslinger card, which also supports this going wide strategy. Yeah. There's a couple of cards that I can see in the graveyard recursion thing that I'm like, oh, this is just like a good spell to have in a deck that has a lot of like ETB effects on creatures and stuff like that. Just good, get back, reanimate, make the ETB happen again.
Yeah.
Weird. I know we've talked about a lot of the time on this podcast about don't be distracted by too many sub-categories and sub-themes. This deck does that, so feel free to @Walt being like, you did exactly what you told me not to do. But it works. Actually, if you can, sit down for a game with Walt with this deck.
I'll be bringing it to like every game store I go to for the next like several months, I suspect.
It's actually going to be attached in a holster on your hip. It's like we need to get palms off to develop like some kind of like quick draw access.
It's Thursday. What was your experience like playing against it? I'm curious.
I was... Honestly, like, when you came to me with the idea, I was like, this is going to be the jankiest pile of crap I've ever seen.
My feeling too.
I was, like, genuinely... Because it was such a cool idea in terms of, like, having a deck that was Walt and having, like... It was so thematic and so cool. It was very similar when you said, I'm going to build an Electra deck. This feels like a Walt deck to me. But when you played it for the first time... I was shocked at how much value the commander gave you. 7 cards is incredibly deep, and the fact that you hit more than you miss is ridiculous. And the fact that, we've just spoken about it, the strategies overlapping and cards synergizing that you wouldn't ever think of synergizing together.
No.
It was insane. I was also just kind of pleased that it hung at tables... that are casual tables that are running high-powered cards. Like, the first game that we ever played with it, I was playing my Phylaf deck, and I had just tweaked it and given it a fresh paint of coat, like a fresh paint of coat. Fresh. The amount of times I've done this on this podcast.
Ever painted your walls with a coat?
Ever looked at that coat and gone, damn, that's a wet drip. Thank you. But I just recently upgraded this deck, and I was looking at my deck going, wow, this is really powerful. I don't feel like I should be playing this against Walt. And you were like, no. I just want to see my deck if it does the thing at all. I was doing some incredible stuff in that game. Like, I was ramping out of the graveyard with Raminap Excavator, getting multiple landfall triggers a turn. I had like a 20/20 plant at one point.
Yep.
And the whole time, you were in the game. It wasn't like I was like avoiding eliminating you because we were testing a new deck. You were like, no, I have all of these blockers.
Yeah.
And I can potentially double block something and kill it. Or if you swing out at me, I will go to 2, but kill you on the crackback.
Yeah.
Like, there was a lot of moments where I was like, hang on, how am I playing a deck with Crucible of Worlds, doubling season, and losing to a deck that costs less than a Chupa Chup? Like, it was really amazing to behold. I was really surprised. I'm not saying it's busted.
No,
for anyone that's like listening to this and going, oh, I'm actually scared of going up against Walt's curated 5-color deck with a custom commander. It's nothing like a busted 5-color custom commander. No. The commander is strong to make sure the deck functions and gets to a point where at a table it can actually... hang and be at a relative power level.
Yeah.
But it was really impressive. I'm actually like goofy smiling thinking about those games. They were really fun.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Yeah, so I'll say it definitely hang in those kind of mid-ish powered games. Yeah. It hasn't won a game yet. So...
No, but it has come close.
It's come close. I think it hangs. I don't think the ideal pod for it is that, like, your Phylaf deck.
It was a bit too strong.
Phylaf deck was probably a little bit stronger. And also, I think we played a game against... our friend Jordan was playing his Dragon deck. That blew it out of the water. Strong, It was, like, way better than my my Janky Thursdays deck.
One of my favorite decks, by the way, Jordan's Dragon deck. Just beautifully built.
Oh, really cool. It's just like, it just does the thing so efficiently and so well. Yeah, it's a great deck. But yeah, I think it's like, I don't think it's down at pre-con level. I think the commander just pushes it a little bit higher than that. But honestly, not by much. I think this is a deck you could bring out against beginnerish, battle cruisery casual games.
Yep.
And it would be fine. It would be appropriate. It wouldn't be busted. It would do the thing. It would get close. Maybe it would win. Maybe it would lose. It would hang, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that it's got enough interaction that it, handles threats of other people's casual decks playing a big bomb. Like Dawn Charm is an incredible removal spell, an incredible protection spell.
Yep.
It can do really good things at a table. And to be honest, at that game, you were solving most of the problems at the table while still developing a board state.
The deck finds removal really well, I'll say for sure, because most of the removal is 3 or 2 drop cards, like most people's removal is in most commander decks. Yeah, and you're looking 7 deep most of the time. As soon as a problem is a sort of identified on the table, it's very easy to dig until you find removal. You cast 2 spells, you've just gone 14 cards deep. The odds you find 1 removal spell in 14 cards is very high.
And also the removal spells are again at that mana value where you can pick it.
Yeah.
Like Dawn Charm 2 mana, if you've cast a 3 CMC spell, you get it.
Yeah.
I also think that the commander is just powerful enough, because something that I proposed when you were thinking about it was an eminence ability, so it didn't have to be on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Because I have noticed since playing it a couple of times that if you remove the commander, it does terribly.
It doesn't work.
The value of the deck really comes from the fact that you are sculpting your hand with the perfect... if you get your opening hand right, all right, I can cast my commander, I've got the ramp, I've got whatever, and then I've got this double vision, I'm going to go down the spell slinger kind of storm route.
Yeah.
If you see that, you're like, oh, amazing, I've got that kind of route. If you don't have your commander to go 7 cards deep with every spell and go, right, there's 7 cards here, one of them's a graveyard thing, one of them's a go wide thing, there's my spell slinger, empty the Warren's storm card, I'll pick that. If you don't have that, it becomes a lot worse because you're drawing a card where you're trying to set up a big, explosive storm count with Empty the Warrens in your hand, and you draw a Captain of the Watch. You're like, this doesn't allow me to storm
or you draw Greg the Useless Sculptor. And it's cool, I'll have a sculptor every end step. That doesn't help at all.
It's kind of an attack with these,
Yeah.
But I feel like an eminence trigger would make it... if you said... If you basically just made that line of text of look at the top 7 eminence, it would be way too strong.
Oh, it would,
because you would be doing the refilling thing before turn 4 or 5, which is when the commander comes out.
I did the thing that I think Wizards should do more often, and I think people have said this many, many times before, which is I've got a 5-color commander that costs 5 colors.
Yes.
Really important. It costs Wooburg, right?
Yeah.
And the important thing about that as well is my mana has to be a certain way, and I have to play so much ramp in the early game to get to that 5 mana and Wooburg at the same time.
Out of the 5 games, I think you cast it pretty consistent. I would say 4 out of 5 times it was on turn 4.
Yeah.
And then maybe turn 6 for one of the games because you didn't hit the right colors or whatever.
Yeah, there's also a lot of tapped lands.
Yeah.
So if you're only getting to the 5 colors through tapped lands, you are fully a turn behind, basically.
Turn 6 is when you get your 5-drop commander out.
Yeah, exactly right. But it's very hard to get to the commander, and you have to focus a lot of your energy in the early game on getting there. I think even this exact same commander, but if it costs 3 and a white,
or if it did
4 and a white.
It did the Joda thing of 1 in Jeskai, but then it's got a 5-color activated.
Yeah, that would make the deck so much stronger. But the mana has to be kind of bad in the deck, the mana base. And the ramp has to be very, very dependent, very important in the deck to even get to the 5 colors. I'm not saying it's terrible, by the way. I'm just saying, I actually think the power level is pretty balanced. But yeah, I agree with you. If the commander gets removed, the deck really struggles.
You spend your next 2 turns trying to recast your commander is essentially what I've seen.
I think it does, fly under the radar a little bit. I think it's not so strong of an ability that
it definitely flies under the radar. No one's read the EDH Rec article about this yet. No one's sitting down. You played 5 games with it.
Alright, maybe that's the wrong word to use. It's not rated because no one has rated it yet.
Maybe it will start being a bit of a lightning rod for removal.
Yeah,
Who knows?
I think in the late game, I've seen it get removed a few times, and I think that's right. Once I have a full grip and I've got a few creatures on board.
Once if you've got a full grip and your commander and a clear strategy on board, because that's what I think the deck does. It assembles a strategy, and then with a full grip, it can make the strategy work.
Yeah.
So if you're going the go wide, I'm trying to find End-Raise Forerunners, and we can see that, and you've got 7 cards in hand, you've got your commander, I'm he's going to find that in 2 spells.
Yeah.
Because you're going 14 cards deep. He's already looked through his entire library already at this point. He's probably maybe already got it in hand. We need to get rid of his card advantage engine.
Yeah.
That's the commander. Yeah, that's the right choice.
To be honest, if I could do only one thing differently in the design of the commander, I would have given it like Ward 2.
Just to protect it a little bit.
Just wait a little bit, not give it hexproof.
For the early game.
Yeah, just for the early game, because it is important to build with. But look, I'll say that, and I'll also say it flies under the radar. Like, people, until the late game, people very rarely remove it. It's just a 4/7 most of the time. Like, it's finding me cards, but it's not doing something so busted that you have to remove it.
I'll tell you what, it's a brilliant block as well. 4/7.
Yeah, it actually...
4/7 is a good block.
It was like, I mean, the flavor was there for making it a 4 out of 7, but also just like keeping me alive. Having a 4/7 blocker actually keeps you alive pretty well.
Yeah,
definitely. Good chunk of the time. So a question I'm sure some people are asking out there, because we've sort of jumped around it a little bit, is can I see this deck list that you've made, Walt? Walt, can I do that?
Want to see the actual cards in the list?
Yes. And the answer is you can. If you subscribe to the Patreon in the Quadrant Lieutenant or higher tier of our Patreon, you will receive a link to this deck list, as well as a paper copy of Thursday Incarnate, including the art by Electra.
It's really incredible. Cool. I've literally been like fiddling with the card the entire time we've been recording this because I love how it looks. It looks like a Magic card as well, which is incredible. Yeah, it's pretty. You should, you want this.
It's very cool. It's borderless as well. It goes all the way to the edge. It's very, very nice. So yeah, you can receive a copy of the deck list and a copy of the card. Sorry, not a copy of the deck list. You can receive the deck list.
Yes, the link to Moxfield.
Yes, and you can receive the physical card itself, so you can build the deck yourself. You'll have everything you need to build the deck yourself. And I'm happy to say that people subscribing at tiers higher than Quadrant Lieutenant have the ability to receive a signed copy of Thursday Incarnate. I will sign a copy for you.
That's pretty cool. You're doing signed copies of a custom card? That's pretty cool.
I think it's pretty cool. And you will also receive a link to a slightly different deck list. This will be the live deck list, because as I continue to write Thrifty Thursdays, because it's not leaving, it's going to keep on happening every Thursday, I'm going to make substitutions to my deck, because I'm going to find new cards that I think fit the deck list better. I might put more card draw in there. I was talking about how that was lacking a little bit. And so, yeah, you can have a link to my live Moxfield deck list, and you will be able to keep up to date with the deck and make substitutions as I do, if you would like.
I honestly would really urge you to at least have a look through this deck list at least once. You can subscribe to the Patreon once to get the link and have a look, pay the monthly fee, and then you can unsubscribe if you really, really want to. The Quadrant Lieutenant is like not much. It's like a couple of bucks a month. And you get a bunch of other benefits as well, but have a look at the list at least once. This deck is weird. I love it so much. And you are also going to be helping Walt be able to do more of this podcast stuff. We're going to be doing more Thrifty Thursdays, more episodes. So by supporting the Patreon, you're not only getting a cool art card with some incredible artwork, you are going to be like supporting what we do here at Get Commanded. So go to patreon.com/getcommandedpodcast and you can find all of those amazing benefits and support what we do.
It's true. Well, writing Thrifty Thursdays for you all over the last 100 weeks has been my absolute joy. I hope that my writing has shown you all the power of the underpriced and underappreciated cards in our format, and that you've picked some of them up for your own Commander decks. Thrifty Thursdays has kept me in touch with my creativity during times that I otherwise wouldn't be able to. Cough, lockdown. So thank you for reading and enjoying the posts. It means a lot to me. And if they've given you even a fraction of the joy I felt when I was writing them, then I'm a happy man. So Space Commanders,
command received. That's awesome. Well, look, to you listeners, what do you think of Thrifty Thursdays? And I want to know which is your favorite and whether or not you've included a Thrifty Thursdays card because of the blog post Walt does.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
I want to know as well, for those who've been following for a long time, what's your favorite as well?
I've had a couple. One of my favorites was Haunted Cloak. But just because I love the rhythm of there once was a man in a cloak. He loved to bathe and to soak. But his cloak would get wet and smell worse than sweat, so now he's the weird sticky bloke. I can remember that one word for word. I think it's awesome.
The limerick, yeah. It's a good one. So you can get in touch with us by sending us an email or joining the Greensboro Commander Community Discord server to chat with us and other members of our playgroup. You can also follow us on Twitter or Instagram and Threads, which we've just created an account for. So you can see our thoughts on upcoming cards, sets, events, other Magic the Gathering updates. We're at get commanded on all platforms.
Yeah, and I will say Instagram, if you want a real good glimpse into our lives, I will be jumping on that quite often on the stories. I will be like posting up some live gameplay updates if we're in games together.
Sure.
Just generally filming what we do at Commander Night. So if you want to follow us on Discord and see like our actual faces on a camera, I reckon Instagram's going to be the place to go.
Yeah, I'd say so. And speaking of our Patreon, we mentioned a couple times this episode, we would like to thank our patrons Stella Tam and Fuzzy. And we'd also like to make a very special shout out to Fletcher Cutting, who supports us in the Space Commander tier. You're the best, Fletcher.
You are the best. And once again, thank you to Palms Off Gaming for sponsoring this podcast and also providing the really nice Genesis Nitro Core deck box that Thrifty Thursdays, the deck, sits in now.
It's also, they supplied the sleeves.
Did they really use their sleeves?
They did. I think I'm not allowed to mention what they're called yet, because I think they're not actually released.
These are their unreleased ones.
Yeah, they gave us some unreleased sleeves. So very special shout out to them for that. But yeah, the deck is living in a box and living in sleeves that are provided by Palms Off Gaming and for free. So thank you very, very much to Palms Off Gaming for that. You can check out all the sorts of things that they have on offer for you at palmsoffgaming.com.au.
All right, well, this is a weird one because we've done the episode. We've had multiple Thrifty Thursday interludes. Yes. So should we planeswalk?
Let's planeswalk out of here. Where are we planeswalking to this week, James?
Well, considering we're in the month of August, and we've got a couple of important things that happen in August, namely mine and my partner Theo's birthdays.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to planeswalk to Birthday Land and give you an update on what we got to do for our birthdays.
Sure. So I was present for your birthday. I recall that. That was at the game store. We played in a midnight pre-release for Commander Masters. Yeah. Very good timing that was that night.
It was kind of wild. So, yeah, my birthday was like the day that it ticked over for the pre-release.
Yeah.
And I tried to keep it on the DL. I'm very much a person that hates being the center of attention for not a reason that I want it to be. Like, I love being the center of attention when it's like, I'm making a podcast, you should subscribe to it. I'm very good at that, but I'm not great at when it's like, happy birthday to James. I'm like, oh, that's uncomfortable.
Sure.
But, look, the game store that I play at, I've been a pretty prominent member there now for a while, and I've been very embedded in the community. And it was so sweet. And you were actually completely unaware of this. No one clued you into the surprise, did they?
No, not to this, the cake that your mum apparently had prepared earlier that day.
So my partner Theo and one of the people that work at the store, Luke, who we've mentioned on this podcast before, is an incredible guy. They colluded with my mother to get my mum to make a massive cake. Like, I'm talking like it was a huge slab of
almost
cake.
a meter long kind of thing.
It was huge. It was like genuinely, I reckon, a good, like 50 centimeters. Yeah, pretty big. And like on a board and to the store. So when I walked into the store, there was all these like streamers and bunting and balloons up. And I was like, what's going on with the things, Luke? And he's like, it's your birthday, bro. And I was like, oh, dude, I didn't know you did that for me. That's so sweet. Thank you. Just keep it on the DL, though. Like, it's just, we'll say it's for Commander Masters Celebratory.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we sat down. We did the draft. We did the Commander Masters draft. I drafted an absolute sick deck in that draft, by the way.
Yeah, you won, right?
Yeah, I won my pot. I got a bunch of prizes. It was sick. It was, for those wondering, it was the Joriel 1 and a green, whenever you draw your second card, make a cat, and Razaketh as partner commanders.
Yeah, so for the purposes of Commander Masters, any single color commander had partner. Only for the draft, so not in regular commander, but for draft purposes, any single color commander you could play in your command zone with another commander in the command zone of a different color identity if you wanted. So you built a Golgari deck, in this case, from Razaketh and Joriel. I ended up building a...
You cracked Craterhoof, didn't you? In this draft?
I cracked Hoof in my first pack. Actually,
that's pretty good.
Pack one, pick one Hoof. So I built I think it was a Gruul ramp deck. Who are my commanders? I had Rishkar, Pima Renegade, put +1 counters on stuff. Cast for mana.
Oh, didn't you have Thrix, the Sudden Storm? Wasn't it Simic?
Oh, it was Simic. It was a Simic ramp deck. Yeah, I did yucky Simic things.
Yeah, of course.
Had every ramp spell I could find, and then just like massive bomb creatures. Yeah. And then Thrix made them cheaper. Rishkar put counters on them. I was just fishing for Hoof.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was a fun draft. But yeah, so you drafted Golgari.
I drafted Golgari. Once we'd like all done the deck building and all that kind of stuff, Luke goes to the back room and asks, funnily enough, comes up to me and goes, "Hey, man, do you mind just watching the front for a second? I'm just running to the back room." I'm like, yeah, sure, no worries. I do it all the time. And he comes out with a birthday hat, like a party hat on, with a cake with candles in it, singing happy birthday. And the whole store sings happy birthday to me, and honestly made me feel so loved. I was such like I've got a real family in this community of absolute nerds. I love it. So that's what I did for my birthday. We ended up playing at the store until, like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning.
I left at like 1:30, and there were games of Commander just starting when I left. Yeah. So it was a long way to go.
I didn't get home till about 4 o'clock. I literally locked up the store with Luke on the way out. It was insane.
Yeah.
But for my partner's birthday, which was literally yesterday as of time of recording, we did something special. I basically said to Theo, "Don't worry about the day, just keep it blank. I'm just going to do something special for you," because we never do anything. It's really rare that we get to go out just us together for our own little adventures. It's always with a group of friends or
double dates and that kind of thing.
We're both working full time. It's pretty challenging.
Hard to find the time.
So I had booked us a break room. Have you ever seen these?
I have seen these on people's Instagrams before, right? It's the big room full of like crockery and breakable things.
Yeah.
And then you put on like a big jumpsuit and have a baseball bat.
Basically, yeah. You also get, with the package that I bought, we got a crowbar.
Oh my God.
So I felt real Joker from Batman with a crowbar and a sledgehammer.
Oh my word.
Oh my God. We each got to choose like 3 or 4 songs that we could be in there because they play your own music. You get to choose the music.
Nice.
So I was playing like heavy metal and stuff.
Yeah.
But I thought it was the perfect gift for Theo. Theo has needed to blow off some steam for a while.
That makes sense.
And it was carnage in there. Absolute mayhem. We also got like 2 computer monitors, like decommissioned computer monitors.
Oh.
And beat the ever-living hell out of those.
Wow.
The cool thing about it though, and this is my actual planeswalk away from magic, is this company, the Break Room, they actually do some incredible environmental work because what they do with all this decommissioned computer stuff is they move it out of landfill cycles. So what this stuff would usually be going towards would be landfill. They redirect it to them. They keep it for a couple of months, have a bunch of people beat the ever-living hell out of it, and then like rip it apart, send it to like recycling centers.
Oh, wow.
And then they also recycle the ceramic that's coming out of the crockery and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
In a massive skip. I'm talking like, it's huge. It's like 4 meters wide by about like, probably 4 meters high by about like 7 meters wide. It's a huge skip. Massive skip. And they empty that once a week.
Far out.
It's impressive how much they go through.
Wow. Yeah,
it was good fun. It's a breaker. It's in Collingwood in Melbourne.
Yeah, I think I've ridden past it on the train before. Maybe. Yeah,
it's really cool. If you've got a reason to go and blow some steam off in a room where they just give you a visor and a baseball bat, go do it. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
It sounds like fun.
But that was the month of August was the month of birthdays for me. So that was my planeswalk.
I'm glad you had a good time with both of them. So that's all we have time for. We'll see you next Friday for another transmission from the Space Commanders.
Goodbye, Commander players.